I don't have any internet service.
Yeah, it's not working.
So is the internet service working?
Yeah. The only one
I don't have
side up is base.
But how do you know?
Oh. True.
I normally recognize it.
Yeah, hold on. I had to ask it.
Well, that's confused why it's being more.
Welcome everybody to the April 5th, 2023 town board meeting. We'll start the meeting with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll open the meeting with opportunity to speak to the board. The first speaker I have is Mike Wargo.
That's me.
Okay, go ahead, Mike. Would you mind standing over here? Thank you.
Where, right?
Yeah, just right over here. Yeah. So we have the camera preset for people to see you.
Hello, I'm Mike Wargo. I live at 274 76 Road here in the town of Caroline. You may know that as the location where my wife Michelle Whitaker owns and operates the Pet Playhouse and Kennels. If the proposed zoning law was in place 17 years ago when our business was established, would have been prevented from the opportunity to establish and grow the business on land that Michelle and I and the Whitaker family has paid taxes on for almost a century. Consider, if you will, that within the spirit and the intent of the United States Constitution, which this great country was founded and built upon, is the notion that government is for the people. Nowhere in the language does it state or suggest that government is against the people or that the purpose is to rule the people. Now, as a result of gross miscarriage in government at the state level, we, the 3,350 residents of the town of Caroline, have been thrust into a position where the town supervisor and 4 town council members have the power to decide for the rest of us whether an obstructive, oppressive, and overreaching zoning law will be enacted and enforced in our town. That, my friends, is not the way a democratic government was intended to function. Imagine, if you will, traveling around the entire town of Caroline, traveling down each and every street, road, and highway within its borders. Along the way, if you were to count the total number of signs opposing zoning in the town of Caroline and the total number of signs supporting it, I'm certain that we all, whether in favor or against, can agree that by conservative estimate, there is at least a 10-to-1 ratio favoring opposition over support. We, the people of the town of Caroline, suggest to the town council that they read the signs and understand that they represent what a democratic vote would look like. To sum up, we, the people of the town of Caroline, do not want zoning and beg the town council to act in their elected positions for the people of the town of Caroline. Thank you for letting me share these thoughts with you.
Thank you, Mike. John Morse.
More the same for me, but tonight's a little different. I want to remind the board that at the last meeting, you guys got a petition for 1,200 plus signatures. And somehow it didn't get in the minutes. And it also, I heard that it didn't get in the minutes. Let me clarify that because I didn't check myself. It also didn't get even a minute of your guys' agenda for today. That is freaking embarrassing. You have 1,200 people in this town and you couldn't give them some time in the agenda to talk about what you got, even if you're not ready to make your decision. Holy hell, that's disgusting. At any rate, I'll assume that you forgot, because I would imagine that you wouldn't blatantly do that to so many people in this town. Moving on, the zoning commission has voted to give you their proposal. They were tasked with coming up with a proposal that fits the town of Caroline. I believe they failed in their task. This is a small town and they gave you a document with massive regulation. Not representative of what's required in a town like this, when you drive around Speedsville and the far reaches of the town. Maybe that's what you need in downtown Brooktondale. It's not what you need everywhere else. They failed to realize that Route 79 is a resource for businesses. It's a resource the whole length, not 100 yards. The assessment meeting that we had last week that had no zoning or no town board members at it. The assessor told us that they assess properties at the highest and best use. What's going to happen when the highest and best use is mitigated by the zoning regulations? Are we going to get a reduction in our taxes because we can't sell it to someone to use it as commercial property? Has that been addressed? The zoning commission's come up with a plan that's going to drive up costs in a community where many people already struggle financially. That's not right. There's a ridiculous water overlay in this thing that limits residents' use of their own properties. It's said that that's going to save our water. There's no one on the zoning commission that's an expert in this. They're not environmental engineers. They just plopped an arbitrary number to make themselves feel good. The EPA, the DEC, the health department, the Army Corps have teams of engineers whose whole job is to protect our health and welfare and to protect our water. Not the zoning commission, they don't have that. And if they did do the research and come up with some mind-blowing thing that no one else is finding, why haven't they shared that same thing with the Army Corps and the health department and the DEC? Because it doesn't exist. There's no need to take more from our community with no added science behind it. The water overlays is ridiculous. The zoning commission failed. A good zoning proposal would have had overwhelming support from the community. This proposal has exactly the opposite. This is a community that is overwhelmingly opposed to zoning. Thank you.
I will be responding to the petition later, but we start with privilege of the floor and go from there. So, Edie Spalding.
I don't have anything prepared too, right, but just some thoughts that I have. Number one, I don't think zoning is needed. So we got all the laws from New York State that cover, I think, most of the stuff that's in the thing. Not to mention the commercial zone up and down 79. I think it should be tabled or just forgotten about totally, just do away with it. And one question I do have is, why do we need it? I see no reason whatsoever that it's needed. And, things have gone this long for this many years. And I don't know where, that much has really changed to really say that we need it. So why do we need it? That's my big question.
Oops. Peter Quaid.
Thank you. I'm gonna be submitting this to the Town of Caroline correspondence file tomorrow to the clerk. And this will, one page, it might take me all 4 minutes to read it. And I want to read it carefully, so I beg your indulgence for that extra minute. So this is to the supervisor and the town board. My gosh, I'm sorry. I was always accused of hollering. So this is to the supervisor and the town board. And last month, we submitted a petition with over 1,200 signatures of residents and landowners requesting that the enactment of the town's first zoning law be postponed until January of 2024. There are about 2,800 adult residents in the town, many of them transient. About 2,000 registered voters and about 12 to 1,300 who vote in the local elections. Our petition numbers are significant. Does this petition have legal merit? Of course not. No more than the much smaller one submitted in 2020 requesting that the town halt the Dollar General project, which, as we know, is granted by means of a building moratorium, about to be extended for the 4th time and entering its 4th year. There are 2 reasons for our petition. One being that the town provide ample time for all residents to acquaint themselves with the draft law in its final form. And 2, that the voters have an opportunity to express their views on zoning as policy in the only way that matters at the polls. Attempting to justify fast tracking zoning based upon the acknowledged comments to and questions of the zoning commission falls short. First, the commission does not make policy, so their responses were limited to the content of the working draft, not the desirability of zoning for Caroline. We are just now entering a period in which questions of policy may be discussed with our lawmakers. Second, the working draft has undergone many changes, and it seems to be just common sense that people should have time to educate themselves on it once the language has been fully worked out. And third, every zoning expert that I am aware of advises that first-time zoning enactment is a multi-year process. In our case, the town board hired a planning consultant who presented the zoning commission with a 130+ page boilerplate draft law from which it could and did make minor amendments. The end result is still a 130 page plus draft law. Boilerplate. How much better would it have been for the commission, with or without the dubious benefit of a planning consultant, to have asked the people what they wanted in the zoning law and built the language up from there? So where to from here? Thus far, the board appears not to have taken any action or done any deliberations based upon the past 15 months of citizens entreaties. This is perhaps understandable, given the status of the zoning draft as a work in progress in the hands of the zoning commission. Now the town board has a legitimate opportunity, I would say obligation, to deal head on with the concerns of these many hundreds of citizens who have been trying to be heard on this subject. 6 months worth of deliberations and informal public hearings are not too much to expect of our local government on a matter that will change Caroline forever. Such time spent will bring us up to the 2023 election, when the people will have the opportunity to formally voice their opinions, having thoroughly engaged with the board in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. RC, quick. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thanks to all of you for coming. The last town meeting I attended 7 months or so ago, I had asked for the lectern to be moved to allow use by the people who are participating in the privilege of the floor. Since I was the first speaker, I don't think any recording was going on at the time. As the lectern was being moved, both Mark Whitmer and Kate Kelly McKenzie informed me in no uncertain terms that the lectern was not needed for privilege of the floor and to put it back. The lectern was put back. We have not had a lectern to speak from since that time. At the next meeting, and it's my understanding, I wasn't here, but Kelly McKenzie put a cease and desist order on applause and vocal recognition of speakers. But that seems to have changed, which I'm glad to see. If we go back and look at town board meetings in 2019, 2020, 2021 that are available to us, we see a lectern being used for privilege of the floor. Perhaps Mark and Kate did this to punish me for going over my 3 minutes at a previous meeting. I really don't know, and I certainly don't understand. I don't understand why this town board is continually taking away from the residents and taxpayers. Now we are in the final stages of zoning. Of a zoning law that from all indications will be passed by this town board, even with 1,228 legal signatures from residents and landowners who want zoning postponed for 24 months. This town board has forgotten about service and is behaving selfishly. When service devolves into selfishness, community cohesion dies. Here, here. I know that those of us with the courage to stand up and address the town board at these meetings deserve a lectern to speak from. A group of us got together and had a lectern made. And this lectern is donated to you. Privilege of the floor and those with the courage to get up here and speak. From a group of us trying to save Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Quick. Bruce Murray.
I wish I knew that RC, go ahead. And that nice lecture.
I didn't really prepare anything, but I've got to go back and start at the beginning. Beginning was I was on the planning board. We handed the comprehensive plan to a new planning board. I got handed a draft of the plan, of the new plan, comprehensive plan. Went over it, gave a few examples of what should happen within a week and a half. We had a meeting of the town. And it was supposedly a public meeting. There was nobody there but the town board. They passed it into final stage. In that final stage, there was a paragraph in the middle of that comprehensive plan that stated, this is unlike zoning. But wouldn't you know that that single paragraph disappeared in the final draft, which was kind of strange to me. Then we went on to have a task force, which was pretty much handpicked, and it shouldn't have been called a task force, it should have been called a steering committee. Because it went through multiple things, and then they had a farmer on there that had local property, but then he wasn't good enough to be on the zoning commission because he didn't live in the town. But he was good enough to be on the task force to hand to the zoning commission what they needed to do, but he wasn't good enough to be on the zoning commission, which didn't make any sense to me either. Then we had a few things that happened that I'll just skip over, but there was one thing that happened that one of the zoning commission members, it was brought up to them that they were being unethical because they had brought up their property. And their property would just be an example of any other property in the town that the same thing would happen to. But it was brought up to them something about ethics, and it went on and on. But then later on, we had a zoning commission member who wasn't present for over a year, who sent an email to the zoning commission and stated that he would like to keep his foot in the door so that it came time for the critical vote, he would be able to vote. And if that wasn't unethical, but our great representative said not a word to him. It took almost 2 months to get the gentleman off the board. Like I said, things like this have gone on. There's multiple more things that I could tell you about, but I'm going to run out of time. And like I said, it just was. I believe that if this wasn't done under COVID, that there's no way in hell that this would have been pushed through this quick. without more people there, because when this all started, COVID was going on, there was nobody at these meetings. That's what happened when the comprehensive plan got pushed. There was nobody at the meeting. It was supposed to have been a public hearing. There was nobody there. There was nobody present. There was nobody on Zoom to say anything about it. And it got finalized. But like I said, there was just too many things that went down, as far as I'm concerned, the wrong way.
Jesse Burke.
Hello, everyone. Jesse Baburka. I've been a resident of Caroline, yes, all my life. Haven't lived here the whole time, but just, kind of seeing this meeting, I've been, paying attention to kind of the developments here. The one thing I see very clearly is the tension in this room, the tension, members of the board and everyone is very invested in this who's here. And I understand that. And I believe that, people who are presenting zoning are doing it because they believe it's something that's beneficial. There's a lot of people who don't. The main thing I'm looking at is that there is definitely a lot of people who have signed a petition asking for it to be, for there to be an extension on enacting zoning, basically on voting for it. And the argument that, there's going to be an election coming up and that functionally that can kind of be a chance for people to vote on it seems to make a lot of sense to me. So, I believe that, again, people who are in support of zoning believe in it. And I would ask if you have that much, faith in this as a concept, take the time to develop it, to get buy-in from the majority of the people in town. When you have 1,200 people not buying in, I mean, that's, approximately the number of people who vote in elections here. So that's a very significant number. And it's certainly bipartisan. So, my hope would be that, this is something that the town can eventually come together on, that we can figure out a better solution. That might be zoning, but that, we don't do that until there's, a significant, you're never going to please everyone. I know that, but you have a significant number of people who buy into it. And I don't think we're there right now. And I don't think we're going to get there soon. So that's just what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Jesse. Julie Sorrell.
First thing I'd like to say is with the 1,200 signatures that were handed in, why hasn't any effort been taken to examine that and time given to discuss it? Why is that not in the meeting today? And part of your agenda, does it not matter to you that 1,200 people who are supposedly your constituents care enough to sign their name, their address, and information so that you would know that they cared? Why hasn't this been addressed? Second thing is the Route 79 commercial zone, or really lack thereof. There's hardly any actually there. Why is Route 79 not a commercial zone? Where else would we put the commercial zone if not Route 79? Is there special interest possibly that has to do with why the commercial zone isn't on Route 79? It certainly looks that way. The other question I have to ask is, what is the rush? If this zoning is so wonderful and you believe it's for the good of the town, then why are you rushing it through? Why not allow, as a petition asked, the town to be able to vote on their convictions as to who they want to run for the town board, thereby showing whether they wanted the zoning or not. You don't want that, I'm sure, because at least 3 of you are up for election. And you probably know you're not going to get voted in. So I figure that's probably what the rush is, but if it's not, and it really is altruistic for the town, then why not give us the chance to say what we want? Who does the zoning benefit? Does it benefit the town? If it benefits the town so much, why are we all against it? And my last thing that I have to say is something that I felt for a long time has not been fair, is your zoning commission. Some of the members disappeared. I don't know all the reasons why, but why weren't they replaced? We requested that they were replaced. What was the problem with replacing them? They should have been replaced. Was there some other alternative reason why you didn't want them replaced? These are questions I think we need answered.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, sorry. I don't think you're Tonya Van Camp, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Did you want to speak, Tonya? Somebody signed you up. I
I
think.
didn't request to be signed up tonight,
You
but
don't?
I'm gonna read something on behalf of Megan Burke.
Is Megan Burke here?
Yeah.
Could Megan Burke read her own statement?
Where she is?
Could you read your own statement, please?
Sure. So I'd like to call attention to the makeup of the zoning commission. It's largely one demographic, one generation, no farmers, no small business owners, no minorities, no low income or poverty level people, as far as I know. Pretty much all people of roughly the same demographic who are not in the least bit representative of Caroline. These one-sided stack committees should not be making one-sided determinations about the future of Caroline. So I'm going to make a strong recommendation that before pushing through zoning, the town board, please consider forming a new committee, possibly a diversity and inclusion committee that, among other things, would study the historical and cultural impacts of zoning that have thus far been swept under the rug. And could also be charged with other matters that require broader input, and create a formal report to the board. And I suggest that you take that suggestion seriously and do that diligence.
Thank you, Megan. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I don't have any other speakers on.
I would like to.
Matt Nix?
Yes.
Okay.
Getting too old.
No, man.
Some of you know me, Matt Mack, retired dairy farmer. I want to speak to this board about the human toll of the zoning. We have certain things that have been put in place in the draft. And when you look at it from my point of view and those of others, most people go to work, they get a paycheck, a certain amount of their paycheck goes in the bank, 401k, whatever. In my case, I milk cows. I bought my land, I paid for it. That land is my 401k. When you dictate how that land can be sold and how it can be used, you're screwing with my 401k, which makes me angry. The other part of this is I believe that some people's minds have been made up that we're just gonna do zoning. It doesn't matter what people think, they'll get used to it one way or another. Because we know that it's better for the town, but it's not better. By not allowing for the potential growth of businesses and other things, and by putting restrictions on development. And having land set aside that's costing money, that drives land prices down. And then the final thing that I have to say is that you talk about open spaces in the zoning. I can tell you what these open spaces are gonna do. They're gonna grow up trees. There is nobody that wants to play farmer anymore.
It's too expensive, it's too hard, it's too monotonous. I've had enough of it, my kids are doing it. If they decide to throw in the towel the next year or two, guess what? I'm stuck with some land that may not have a value. And if it does, it ain't worth half of what it ought to be. And that is messing with my 401k, because that's where all my money is invested. So in conclusion, I am definitely against zoning. A little regulation here and there about certain things is fine, but not this draft. It needs a lot of work before it's even halfway to where it ought to be.
Thank you, Matt. David Arsenal.
Mark, you had another meeting? Nelson Mick.
I'd like my name added as well, Anna Coster.
And Kathy next.
Put down Chad Kibble as well.
Please and thank you.
My name is David Arsenal, 50-year resident. I own only 2.5 acres. I've always said that I'm very passionate about this area and welcome neighbors, everybody. My grandfather owned a dairy farm. It was called Beaverbrook Farms back in the day. Not sure what years that was, probably Bruce would know. My uncle took over, turned that into John Deere dealership. One of the last independent dealerships in this town or the nation. He also owned the Brookendale IGA, which is now the Brooklyn Market. Had a actual meat shop to buy cars, car fluid, whatever, padlocks, 22 shells. I guess what I'm trying to get to is I'm jotted down a bunch of stuff, so. It's about neighbors being neighbors. I got married, I rented for 10 years. I actually moved back into the house my dad built. Turned out the survey, the well was on my neighbor's property, or was on my property. My neighbor's well was on my property. That got deeded over with a handshake and a little bit of writing. It was a goldenrod field behind my house. I had a beautiful maple tree that actually got number 2 on the Tompkins County tree search. Big tree search. And now it's all in the second growth woods. And it's dying because it's on a rock shelf. Goes up to 40 feet, falls down and dies. Now my maple is dying. I might have to cut some of that down. And actually, I have some of the most beautiful sunsets in the town with that posted. I guess what I'm getting at, it's like, talk to your neighbors. We don't need rules imposed. I will never comply. Thank you, neighbors.
Thank you, David. Nelson Mix.
Yep, so I'm Nelson Mix. I grew up in Caroline, went away to college. I've been back over 100 times over the past 30 years. I own 40 acres. I've always maintained New York as my state of residence and voted New York. Wore a uniform for 30 years and I just retired. Now I thought I was gonna come back and build my dream home and do what I want on the 40 acres I have.
And I've lived with zoning in Washington DC. And I've dealt with it in other cities, and I think it's a tool that can be used in certain circumstances, but it's not the tool that's needed right now for the town of Caroline. We all bring our own perspectives and ideas. And I guess my point is, it's not what I want to come back to. Thanks.
Thank you for your
Nelson.
service.
Hannah?
Hello, my name is Ann Coster. I'm a resident of Caroline and I'm a registered voter. The original intent of my comments was to tell the board why I'm opposed to adopting the zoning law in Caroline, but after seeing the agenda for tonight's meeting, I switched gears a bit. On the agenda is the introduction of a local law to extend the land use moratorium. Again, there's no mention of the petition the board was handed requesting that the vote on adopting the zoning law be postponed until January 2024. I'm thoroughly opposed to the adoption of the law that extends the land use moratorium again. And I'm wondering, is that subject to referendum? Signed the land use moratorium petition because I felt it was reasonable to consider how certain land use projects might impact resources available to the town. The land use moratorium was overly wordy and fairly ambiguous, but I signed it anyway. I'm disappointed that the moratorium keeps getting extended, and I'm even more disappointed that the original intent was changed from waiting to allow the completion of the comprehensive plan to waiting for the adoption of the zoning law. I did not agree to that. In a recent article in Tompkins Weekly written by our own Jeff Preston, Town Supervisor Mark Whitmer stated that he did not want to comment on the recently presented petition requesting that the board not adopt the zoning law until January 2024, because he wanted to review it. His concern was that the residents did not understand zoning. This petition was free of ambiguity, and considering it otherwise is an insult to 1,200 residents that signed it. During a meeting of the Land Use and Economic Development Task Force, Tompkins County Planner Joan Jerkowitz answered questions regarding zoning and was asked whether a project could be refused based on exterior building materials. She answered yes, but she also cautioned and asked if the reviewing board would be willing to have the same level of scrutiny for a project applicant who may know in the community. The board's handling of these two petitions is a clear example of favoritism, and I do not believe that the current board will enforce a zoning law without favoritism, so I'm opposed to adopting the law. The story is that Robert Johnson was at a crossroads and sold his soul to the devil so he could keep playing, but that's just a distraction from his own talent. This town is at the crossroads as well, and that residents don't understand zoning is just a distraction. We need new leadership. Thank you.
I think Chad Tibbles is next.
Hi, folks. Like everybody knows me, local. I just want to say one thing. There's some property, I live on Burns Road. There's some property that was for sale by a private individual. They wanted to sell it. They listed it. It's 14 acres, a little bit of a side hill, nice piece. My kids grew up hunting there. We've done a lot there. There's a piece we were taking care of, and I couldn't afford it. I made an offer of 100 grand. They turned me down. That's now 14 acres listed. Hannah, what's the name of the real estate company?
How about Howard Hanna?
Howard Hanna. It's now for 275.
14 acres.
No, 14 acres. It's already happening. Local people can't afford to live here. It's right, and it's making our taxes go up. No fact gonna do when that sells 4 pieces up from mine. I'm struggling now. I got an 18-year-old kid right here in the gray. never been to one of these meetings, he might want to stay here, he might not want to now when he sees land. It's getting hard here, we don't need to make it harder with this zoning. We don't want it, it's gonna make it harder for the people living here. And the people that want to continue living here in the next generation. I got 2 kids here. One's 20, he's 18 now, they're not kids, but. They're here concerned at a young age on what's going on, they want to live here possibly. It's hard not to like this place, but. I don't see a future for our young ones here, I really don't, so you guys think you're saving this place from the future, but you're hurting this place from the future. The future's here in front of you. Come on, please.
Hey, Chad. That's the last speaker I have on my list. Did you miss anyone?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Excuse me, it's gonna take a minute to get there.
Kathy Mix.
So I want to thank the zoning commission for their work that they did. I think it was an impossible task, so, and it was a hell of a battle, so thank you. There's 2 points I want to make to the town board. Now that you have this in your hand and you've been listening to the townspeople for the last 2 years, I hope you were listening with open ears and open hearts and not closed minds. We've got a long haul as you guys review this and make a decision on where we go from here. And I really hope you take to heart what everybody has said and listen. The other point I wanted to make is you are public servants. And I'm gonna quote Mr. Schippo because I really feel very strongly about that. You are public servants. I've been a public servant for 30 years here in town. And to see the disdain and the unneighborly behavior that's happening now with, pitting neighbor against neighbor, that's what zoning is going to do. It's gonna stop people from talking to each other. If they have a problem with what's going on next door, if I have a problem with a neighbor, it's gonna prohibit them, it's gonna give them an out instead of coming and talking to me and letting me know that they have a problem with something that I'm doing. It's telling on your mom, okay? I don't think we need that in this town. We've been a community of like-minded people, a community who cares, and we're getting away from that, and it makes me ill. So let's come together again, please. Okay, let's be Carolyn on the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right. Going to move on to the meeting. So I will be making a statement after we accept the report from the zoning commission. So we'll move on to the presentation of the final report from the zoning commission to the town board.
Thank you.
Peters is here.
Thank you. I'm going to read the resolution.
Okay.
Whereas the town board of the town of Caroline by resolution created the zoning commission in February 2021 to examine existing conditions, recommend the boundaries of zoning districts and appropriate regulations to be enforced therein through a process which encourages and accommodates public input, make a preliminary report, hold public hearings on the preliminary report, and submit final report to the town board. And whereas the town board appointed members to the commission in March and July of 2021, and whereas the zoning commission beginning in March of 2021 and continuing through March 2023, conducted commission meetings generally bi-monthly during which interested parties could speak during the meeting floor and for which minutes and Zoom recordings were posted. And whereas 6 public information meetings were held between December 2021 and December 2022, and responses to 215 questions from the public were written and posted on the town's website over a period of 15 months. And whereas the zoning commission utilized the services of a consulting firm hired by the town board to assist its work. And whereas the zoning commission's consultant and the members of the zoning commission formulated a preliminary report to the board and held 2 public hearings on the preliminary report. on February 22nd, 2023, and February 28th, 2023, which has been edited and modified by the commission after hearing the opinions and questions of residents and property owners, and whereas the zoning commission has now determined that the final report to the board, which contains the draft zoning law, is ready to be brought to the town board. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning commission has completed its work as of March 27th, 2023, that it thanks the residents and property owners of the town for their attendance at meetings, questions and comments, and thanks the town board for entrusting the commission members to do this work, and particularly thanks Councilman Tim Murray for serving as liaison to the commission, and Supervisor Mark Whitmer for attending the meetings to ensure that they were available to the members of the community, and that the commission thanks its consultant Nan Stolzenberg and Rick Lederer Barnes of Community Planning and Environmental Associates, and that the final report to the town board of the town of Caroline, prepared by the town of Caroline zoning commission, is now approved and ready to be presented to the town board of the town of Caroline. There was a roll call vote. We had 5 ayes and 1 nay, and that was Bruce Murray. The resolution was thereupon declared duly adopted on March 27th. So thank you. Thank you for entrusting us with this work, which was 25 months. He keeps saying it's 15. He's lost 10 months somewhere. I wish you were here so I could nag him about that. Thank you very much. Thank you for entrusting us to do this. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So that's-
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Great, okay. With that, I will offer a resolution from the town board accepting the final report on recommendations for a town zoning law from the zoning commission. Whereas the town board by resolution 64 of 2021 formed a zoning commission with a specific charge to examine existing conditions in the town through a process which encourages and accommodates public input, recommend the boundaries of zoning districts and appropriate regulations to be enforced therein. C, make a preliminary report on this information. D, hold public hearings on the preliminary report, and E, submit a final report to the town board. And whereas the town's zoning commission has worked steadily from March 2021 through March 2023 towards these goals with the advice and expertise of our planning consultant, and whereas the zoning commission has considered public input at privilege of the floor at commission meetings, written comments by mail and email, comments at 6 informational meetings and 2 public hearings. And whereas the zoning commission has worked in earnest to gather and consider information and recommendations to create zoning regulations that protect and promote the interests and values of the town of Caroline. And whereas the zoning commission has voted to forward their final report to the Caroline Town Board for consideration, therefore be it resolved, the Caroline Town Board hereby greatly accepts for consideration the final report on zoning regulations for the town by the zoning commission. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kate. And discussion.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Tim?
I would like to make a friendly amendment to add a resolve clause.
Speak up so I can hear you.
I'm speaking as loud as I can. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to add a resolve clause at the end of the resolves. The Caroline Town Board hereby expresses its deep gratitude to the zoning commission volunteers, Chair Jean McFeeters, Ernie Bales, Michelle Brown, Barbara Gnus, Bruce Murray, and Bill Padoka for their tireless work and contributions to the town over a 2-year period.
I accept that. Any other thoughts or questions? Any other? No, okay. If there, I'll call for a vote. Great. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Zoning commission report is accepted.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
we
Jean.
now dissolve.
And now you can dissolve.
Looking forward to that.
Mark?
Did I miss something? What?
Yeah, that, you changed that.
Yes, I added that in. That was intentional. Yeah, that was I did add that in to the language, so I've got it penned here. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah. All right, so with that, I do understand that people are interested, and I understand that the petition had a very large number of signatures. So I do want to offer my thoughts about it at this point. So I want to acknowledge the petition we received at our last meeting with more than 1,200 signatures asking that the town board forego any vote on the zoning law until January 1, 2024 or thereafter, and that the land use moratorium on major commercial developments be immediately suspended. I've seriously considered both the assertions of the petition and also what it asks of the town board. There's been conversation about the merits of a petition and whether it has legal significance. A petition from members of the community to a governing board is to offer information and possibly recommendations to that board. The petition we've been presented with, 1,228 signatures, is concerning. It is important to understand that the merits of a petition ultimately lie in its substance. So the premise of this petition is that additional time is needed for adequate community discussion of the proposed zoning regulations. The great majority of signatures were dated from January 2022 and then added throughout the remainder of the year, following closely on the posting of the first working draft of the zoning law on December 29th of 2021. The zoning commission has provided a number of avenues for public engagement that we've gone through tonight during the course of their 2 years of work, including privilege of the floor at 51 zoning commission meetings, email or mail correspondence, 8 comment boxes placed around the town, 6 public informational meetings, and 2 public hearings on the preliminary report to the town board, as that part is required by New York State town law. The zoning commission, as you know, has answered questions, including 215 posted on the town website. They did that very thoughtfully, doing the research to address those questions and getting advice from experts. And they have seriously considered feedback, however received, and modified their draft zoning regulations where they felt that was appropriate. Both the task force and the zoning commission advertised for volunteers and appointed all applicants. All meetings have been open to the public and have invited public comment. Meetings of these bodies were held effectively during the coronavirus emergency using video conferencing technology. Most meetings have allowed both in-person and remote attendance, something not previously done. The final report of the zoning commission provides a detailed summary of their process. This zoning process was not initiated suddenly on a whim by the town board, but through a well-considered public process, including the 6-year methodical work of the town's volunteer planning board to update the comprehensive plan, which called attention to the vulnerability of Caroline to development interests without stronger land use tools in place. The work of the Land Use and Economic Development Task Force in the fall of 2020, charged with investigating and recommending land use regulations for the town, and the zoning commission's work over the past 2 years to develop zoning regulations appropriate for Caroline. The zoning recommendations from the zoning commission are now in the hands of the town board, like within the last 5 minutes. I recognize that there are concerns and fears of people who signed this petition. Our job is to review what the zoning commission has presented to us to ensure that it appropriately supports the community's vision in protecting and promoting the Caroline that we all love. Our goals are to protect open space, encourage thoughtful nodal development of vibrant hamlets, support home businesses and local commercial interests, and protect our natural resources, especially our waters and waterways. I understand that there are those who believe that zoning of any kind is not needed for the future of Caroline. I do not subscribe to that philosophy. It is clear that increasing growth pressures are coming. We have been and are doing our due diligence in taking responsibility to guide growth in Caroline in ways that supports the community's vision. At today's town board meeting, as you know, I will introduce a local law to extend the land use moratorium for 6 months in order to put a hold on major developments while the town board continues to work on enhanced land use regulations for Caroline. That is the express purpose of a land use moratorium. We have made very good progress and we are ready to continue this work for the town.
May I ask a question? Are you planning on putting that petition in the minutes from last March 15th? Because we asked them to be put.
So that is a question for the clerk. The petition is a town record. It goes into town records. The petition itself, I don't believe will be part of the minutes, but it will be referenced in the minutes.
Your other petitions have been in the minutes. I've looked at them.
Okay.
They're there.
So I can ask the town clerk those minutes. So. We can ask.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, I understand that's a lot of signatures, so.
And out of those signatures, you gotta remember, out of the amount of people that live in this town, 24% are minors, so you need to minus them off of the total.
Okay.
So there's a whole lot in that 1,228 of people that are against all of this.
Okay, thank you. So that's my statement. I will ask the board if
I'd like to make.
anybody wants. Sorry, we're gonna.
The board meeting.
Yeah.
I would like, I would like to make a statement in relationship both to the petition, but also the work of the zoning commission. As board liaison to the zoning commission, I first want to express my deepest appreciation to Chair Jane McPeters and the members of the zoning commission, Ernie Bales, Michelle Brown, Barbara Newth, Bruce Murray, and Bill Padoka, as well as to 4 members who served temporarily, Will Lawrence, Val Work, Evelyn Weinstein, and Patrick Braga. Since March 2021, the commission met bi-weekly and sometimes weekly to fulfill the town board's charge to the commission. Throughout, they remained open to all public comment, most frequently tweaking aspects of their working draft of the law in direct response to suggestions made by the public. To facilitate public discussion and understanding of the process, they voluntarily provided 215 written answers to questions posed by the public while posting them on the town website. They held 6 public information meetings and 2 public hearings. I commend the commission not only for their dedication to this complicated process, but also for their impressive commitment to soliciting and responding to public comment throughout their 2-year process. All meetings of the zoning commission were recorded and remain available to the public. I similarly would like to express equal thanks to Nan Stolzenberg of Community Planning and Environmental Associates, who along with her colleague Rick Lederer Barnes, for her expertise, care, and thoughtful contributions to the zoning commission's many public presentations. Regarding the petition, as I have said frequently throughout the zoning commission's process and frequently at town board meetings, I laud the service of the appointed members of the commission, but also the participation of members of the public across this public process. We have welcomed the passionate participation of those members of the public who provided public commentary to the zoning commission
and provide, and to the board during privilege of the floor, public information sessions and public hearings, and in written statements. What I have most valued have been those members of the public who have carefully studied the zoning drafts and provided a detailed response to the zoning commission. Similarly, I valued the expression of participation by those citizens and taxpayers who signed the petition presented to the board at that meeting. But I want to say that one of the things that concerns me is the language in the petition about the rashness of the process and the secrecy of the process, which I myself heard when one of the members of the petition group appeared at my door and passed the petition and immediately told me that they were acting in secret and rapidly to pass this thing, not realizing who I was. I identified myself to her and we had a conversation. But I'm most concerned because this language about secrecy and speed has also been made in letters to the editor and area papers. And I'd just like to make a couple of points that actually reiterate what Mark said. 11 public meetings by the town board and the zoning commission recorded for public access and 215 written responses to public questions suggest otherwise. Furthermore, this board's unanimous decision to appoint a zoning commission came as a result of years of revision of the comprehensive plan and the subsequent recommendation of the Task Force for Land Use and Economic Development, which met weekly and over public Zoom throughout fall 2020, and which included Ken Miller, who was a leading proponent of this petition. Members of the public are welcome to debate the merits of zoning in Caroline, and we want to have that debate. And we've heard many of your positions regularly throughout the past 2 years. And I'm sure we will have many more discussions of this nature over the coming months. But we really hope that we can avoid rather unhelpful and unproductive comments about misinformation, about secrecy, speed, and this sort of thing. As regarding this petition's demands regarding the town board's calendar, I'm confident that the board's process of considering the recommended draft will conclude after proper outside consultation and after we are confident as a board in our deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Two things are heavy on my heart.
Cal, go ahead.
Two things are heavy on my heart. The right to petition and the consent of the governed. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution states the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's what I see in this petition. It's a long history. It goes back to the Magna Carta in 1215. The consent of the governed. A government's legitimacy and moral right to use its power is justified and lawful only when consented to by the people over which that political power is exercised. This contrasts to the divine right of kings. I think it's something we're all proud to be Americans and proud for our Constitution that guarantees certain basic rights. And I'm not suggesting that this is going against a proper government power and rights, but I am saying we need to take our time. We need to respect your petitions to us and give weight to your consent. If we do this, this is by your consent, not what we feel is appropriate. What we feel as a small board. It's about you. Thank you.
Would anyone else? Okay. Great. Okay, let's move on. Thank you. The highway superintendent's report.
Ted, one of the things that I actually
wanted to bring up. I think there's a lot of things you guys should probably talk about and listen to them. How the guys come up with. So I just actually want to say one thing. We'll have cleanup week again. It will be the last week of April. April 24th to the 29th. Monday through Thursday, 6 to 4, Friday, 6 to 2, and Saturday, 6 to 9.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Do people need to bring an ID? Like, they're not known?
We've asked for it in the past, if you're not knowing.
Yeah.
Just ask to see your driver's
guessing
license or something. Shows that you're from.
Bob, could you tell people how we did on the resale of the old equipment, just so they get, because that's been part of our financial plan?
We did put a few older pieces of equipment on Auctions International, and they were auctioned off. We auctioned off the 3-year-old pickup. That brought shy of $43,000. We originally paid $46,000 for that on the brand.
That's a deal.
We also sold our old wood chipper. It's 1994. We paid $14,000 for it. When it was brand new, we sold that for shy of $7,000.
Great.
Again, with another old chipper truck. We replaced that with another truck. It's kind of dual purpose. It's now a plow truck and a chipper truck. That was used. We bought it from the county 12 years ago, bought it for $8,000, and we sold that for $6,600. So it's actually worked into our capital planning, and our rollover is doing great, and that will only go up. You know, we kind of keep our years in check and not get too far out. Will we make out better? So it's
Great.
Good.
Sounds good. Great, so, he went home and here she is. Hope it didn't take too long. And
Stand here.
I did see Dan earlier. There he is. Okay, Dan.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. I do have several things to report on tonight. Some of the speakers mentioned there was a meeting last week on March 27th in Speedsville on the subject of assessment. Jay Franklin, the county assessor, was there and I was there. There were about 12 residents present. There were a lot of questions and answers specifically about assessment.
Hold on, I'm sorry, can we pause you
Hang on.
and just allow?
Hang on, Dan, we're gonna pause.
So all of you who are leaving,
Don't take it personally.
here's your chance. Otherwise, we need to be able to hear it. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, because the people on Zoom can't hear anything, people are shifting around.
It's our noise canceling microphone. You know.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
I think it's safe, Dan.
Okay.
It's still a little noisy.
It's still a little noisy.
Okay. I think you're clear, Dan. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll start again. Last week, March 27th, there was a meeting in Speedsville on the subject of assessment. Jay Franklin, the county assessor, was there and I was there. There were approximately 12 Caroline residents there. A lot of questions were asked and a lot of answers were given. And a lot of people's assessment went up quite a bit, and obviously people have concerns about that. I don't know for sure that people walked away satisfied, but at least they did have a chance to ask their questions directly and get straight answers.
Thank you. Okay.
I know this board heard about the requested addition to the agricultural district on Thomas Road. And just want to let you know that that's going through. There's going to be a public hearing on that topic on April 18th at 5:30 in the legislature chambers. I wouldn't expect there'd be any issue at all with it, but I just wanted to make you aware of that date.
Thank you.
Last night, the county legislature passed a resolution of support for the idea of a statewide monetary assistance for local ambulance services. Similar to the way that the state provides assistance for county and for town highway departments, the CHIPS program. So that passed unanimously. I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon at the state, but there is some interest at the state. So that's just an issue to keep your eye on it if it starts to gain momentum and if you want to add your voice at some point. We are watching the New York State budget pretty closely because there are several items that could have a very big negative impact on the county budget to the tune of, it could be like $2 million a year, which is a significant amount of money. So stay tuned for that. We don't know what's going to happen yet. I guess we'll all find out at the same time. And then finally, I wanted to mention something. The county's been working on this thing called the Community Recovery Fund, where we gave out some ARPA money to various organizations in the county. And one of them that we had granted money to was called Second Wind Cottages. It's a program in Newfield that houses homeless people. And they wanted to add 12 cottages to their facility to house additional homeless people. And turns out the town of Newfield didn't want that to happen. But it also turns out that the town of Newfield doesn't have zoning. So they passed a special law to stop this, and I won't go into all the details about it, but I wanted to offer it as an example of a really positive aspect of zoning. I know people have here tonight have been saying it's going to stop me from doing things, but it's also going to stop people from doing things that you and most people do not want. If you do not want a homeless shelter next to your house, zoning is the way to do that. So thank you for allowing me to weigh in on your controversial topic. And that is my report tonight.
Thanks, Dan. Questions for Dan?
Dan, can you actually clarify? I think I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this. Did you misspeak when you just? Sorry, the zone, in Newfield doesn't have zoning. And so the example was that a project which is for the public good and social welfare was not able to happen because there was then a local law rather than zoning, which would have said this is okay. Is that what you are?
So there's no zoning, which more or less means you can do what you want as long as it's within the health department regulations, et cetera. So by right, a homeless encampment should have been allowed there, but the neighbors didn't want it. So the town went ahead and just passed what's basically a spot zoning or something, some equivalent to that. My point is zoning covers all these things in advance. It tells what you do want and you don't want, and you don't have to wait for a new thing to pop up to create a special law to deal with it. I don't know if I hope that made sense.
So like, without the zoning, there's no guidance about the size or right, is that?
Yeah, without zoning, more or less anybody can do whatever they want, which is kind of what some of your speakers were saying, but there are plenty of circumstances where something could happen next door to you that you don't want. And the protection in that situation is zoning. So I was speaking.
I was just clarifying that the second wind cottages would be something that we would want, but I don't want that to be on record as an undesirable development. And I knowing you, I don't believe that you would have said that. So I just wanted to clarify since this is recorded.
Yes, my point is that zoning lets you say what you do want and you don't want.
Right. I can't do it, yeah.
Dan, could you say a little bit more about the process for then redistributing the $500,000 of ARPA money from that project?
Yes. Don't let me get lost in the weeds because it's kind of complicated, but the simple version is this. There were 27 applications that were approved last year, but we ran out of money to fund them. So those will all be in the running again. And then each legislator is going to be allowed to pick one additional project to throw into the eligible pot. So that's going to be approximately 40 projects. And then we're going to vote on those 40 projects to see how to allocate the money.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate has a question.
I'm just asking, so we applied for 249,000, got 133 for the broadband initiative. We're not gonna get more, are we? I'm just hoping.
Good question. You're not going to get any more. One of the things we decided is we're not going to give any more to those that already got it. We're going to give to new.
Is the Yellow Barn broadband pop up in the running for the town of Dryden?
Yes, it is.
Great.
All right.
Other
Nope.
thoughts or questions for that? Great. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome. Thank you.
Open it up for committee reports.
I'm very happy to say that I will no longer be giving a committee report for the zoning commission.
What are you gonna do with all that time?
Yeah, you did your report already, right?
Broadband, we met with Hunts Engineering, Mark and I did, and we're working on getting some more people to work with us on that, but that's getting going. Pretty excited about that. We've got another meeting tomorrow morning. Is that right? Yeah. And then in the afternoon, I'm meeting another meeting about broadband funding, looking for more funding through the Appalachian Regional Council, which we're part of. And so they're having a broadband boot camp and looking at funding sources. I'm hoping to ferret out some more funding sources for the town there. That's where I am with that.
Did you hear the news report the other day that the state of New York put in $100 million for widening broadband in the state?
I didn't hear that. I do know that the Connect All program is a statewide program that has a lot of money for the broadband and a rural broadband specifically. And we're working with Dryden to try to access some of that from the state.
I heard it on the news on the car the other day.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring your attention. Thank you.
So we're trying to get in place for the next pilot project. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed and your toes. So yeah, and then the Safe Streets for All grants is coming along. The plan is getting, and the contract is all getting worked out by the Ithaca City Planning Department, which is great. And that is going to be slow though, because it's not going to be finished by August, because we're just getting going. So it's going to be the next year that we'll be up for trying to get implementation money. So, you know, federal government, slow. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nothing, Cal?
No.
Or Catherine? Nothing going on with the ag committee this week?
Tomorrow, April 6th is the event at the Brooksdale Community Center.
What time does that start?
Great question. Anybody remember?
I think it's 6.
6, I have to be, yeah. I will, yep.
6 to 7 is dinner.
Yep.
And then 7 we'll start talking.
Thank you.
Can we talk here?
No.
I'm distracted by a second wind.
Okay.
6 to 9.
Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so I'll offer resolution, Bob provided us the 284 agreement for the expenditure of highway funds. They summarized the work he proposed. So I'll offer resolution authorizing the 284 agreement for the 2023 expenditure of highway funds. That includes general repairs on 70 miles of town roadways and permanent improvements on 1,704 feet of Weaver Road to Whippoorwill Lane and approximately 1 mile on White Church from Caroline Depot to Bell School Road.
I'd like to second it.
Seconded by Cal. And any questions for me or Bob or for Bob?
So that goes on the White Church. No, Caroline Depot Road. Oh, I see White Church Road from Caroline. Never mind. I was thinking it was Caroline Depot. Okay.
So that number may change in the end. We still haven't got our final tallies on our chips.
Okay.
So it's all kind of subject to change, but with that, we're just gonna try to stretch the distance. I think hopefully we'll have in the same spot.
Okay.
Great. So any other questions for Bob about that? I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So, and I did bring the agreement, 2 copies. So we should all sign that before we leave tonight, so. Great, thanks, Bob. And so I am introducing the local law to extend the land use moratorium. As I mentioned in my statement, land use moratoria are intended as a reason place tool while a town is modifying land use regulations. And so I'm proposing a 6-month moratorium. So I did have a few copies out over there, and they're on the table here. So it's the text is the same really, except that I did update where we are. And I indicated in the text of the law that the town has reached the point where the zoning commission has passed the final report on to the town board. So as somebody mentioned previously, yeah, this is we have had a number of moratoria in place, and we've made steady progress under those moratoria from completion of the comprehensive plan to where we are now. So I think it's an appropriate and a reasonable amount of time, and I want to emphasize that it doesn't curtail anything that doesn't require site plan or subdivision review is still allowed. So with that, I will offer a resolution to set the public hearing for that local law for our meeting on May 3rd at 7 p.m. Second by Tim. So yeah, I guess I don't have to send them, so we'll advertise in the town newspaper and have a public hearing at the beginning of that meeting. So any questions or further comments? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? This is for setting the public hearing.
Yeah, fine.
So, your aye or nay?
I'm eyeing for setting the public hearing.
Okay.
Great.
Great, thank you. Following the lead of the county, and this resolution emanated from TCOG, from a recommendation from TCOG. I will offer resolution supporting Assembly Bill A01091 and companion Senate Bill S01852, proposing a novel state funding model to support EMS services. So, and the text of that is in the agenda. Whereas volunteer fire and EMS services in rural New York State have been under pressure for many years, ongoing declining volunteerism rates, which leads to the closure of departments, which leads to expansion of coverage areas for nearby agencies, which themselves struggle with staffing in an environment of ever increasing costs. And whereas efforts to increase volunteerism, particularly EMS, while noble, are neither sustainable nor effective enough to make meaningful long-term impact. And whereas a result of these circumstances, many municipalities have been forced to implement paid EMS, contract for services with other paid departments, or do without timely EMS coverage for their residents. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the critical nature of EMS services, particularly in rural areas, where EMS response is the primary source of frontline emergency healthcare to millions of New York residents. And whereas a subset of the healthcare field, annual EMS cost increases strain the budgets of rural towns and villages who are nevertheless morally and ethically obligated to provide these services to their constituents. And whereas Article 17, Section 3 of the New York State Constitution states that the protection and promotion of the health and of the inhabitants of the state are matters of public concern, and provision therefore shall be made by the state and by such of its subdivisions and in such manner and by such means as the legislature shall from time to time determine. Therefore be it resolved that the Caroline Town Board fully supports Assembly Bill A01091 and companion Senate Bill S01852, which would establish a CHIP-style state funding subsidy for municipalities who operate and contract with public and not-for-profit EMS agencies. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution shall be forwarded to the Tompkins County Legislature, Assembly Member Kellis, Senator Webb, Assembly Speaker Eastie, Senate Majority Leader Stuart Cousins, and Governor Hochul. Did I already get a second? Second by Tim. Okay. Any further questions? No. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm hopeful about that, and
this paper needs to be signed for a government meeting.
Okay.
I need for school.
Okay.
I'd like you to sign it.
I'm happy to do that. Great. So
Right down here.
just right here, okay. That it?
Yep.
Date or
You
anything?
should put your business
Okay.
phone number too.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you for coming.
Yep. All right,
Good job.
so offer approval of minutes of March 15th. Yes, maybe I'd say we hold off on that.
Yeah.
Until next month.
We had that question
Yeah, talk to them about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great. And, oh, I forgot, I meant to add 2 small items at, to the agenda. So, recently, Chapter 14, Article 3, Section 11D of a state law, one-day marriage efficient license has just been allowed in New York State. So anybody can apply to the clerk to get a one-day marriage efficient license to perform a marriage ceremony. So anybody in here could do it. So and that became effective on March 28th. So I had drafted language. Oh, yeah. So. And I will provide this to Velvet later. So I just.
Pete,
Jesse,
could you please respect our meeting? We're trying to have a meeting.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
didn't know my voice carried.
It carries all over the room.
It rumbles. So the, Jesse wanted me to offer a resolution to set a fee of $25, which is recommended fee for the clerk's office for these licenses. So I will offer such resolution. Resolve the Caroline Town Board establishes a fee of $25 for the one-day marriage officiant license. That's a second.
Sounds good.
Second by
Second by-
Kate. And any further discussion? No, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to do, this is wonky, but you will remember that we earlier passed resolution 62 of 2023, authorizing the purchase of file cabinets. So I wanted to repeal that because we discovered that these are readily obtainable from Cornell Recycling, and they file cabinets are going out of vogue with going to paperless, and they have a steady stream of these things, and
Are those done?
and we raided the place and filled the hall with
Try twice.
It's amazing. It's like, you know, the Good News Network where you just hear about good things.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
like
so
Good
that was-
News Network worthy. It's like so good.
So I have offered this resolution, whereas the town court is in need of lockable file cabinets to secure the records, and whereas the town board is committed to reuse whenever possible, and as articulated in resolution 116 of 2019. Whereas Cornell University Recycling is a local source of quality office furniture and file cabinets, therefore be it resolved, the Caroline Town, that is for nonprofits and municipalities. Resolved, the Caroline Town Board hereby repeals resolution 62 of 2023, authorizing purchase of 2 file cabinets. And
Second.
seconded by Catherine, great. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Amen.
So we will be assisting with that process, so. Any further questions?
Replace the locks. Are you gonna replace the locks?
Yes,
Yes.
I inquired today about that, yeah. Mainly because most of them don't have keys, so,
But they're also standard, so.
pardon me?
Tend to be standard issue, so you wanna have something that's unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, yeah, so
Just
I checked on it with Ace today and,
office.
yeah.
Sorry.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Great, thank you. So that passes unanimously.
Good job, you guys. Good job for finding this.
Great.
Yeah,
He's the one who gives all credit for it. I just drove the truck.
yeah.
You drove again.
Wait,
No, I object. I get the finder's fee.
And I was just about to give you credit, Velvet.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank
You were the foundation.
I was the foundation, yes.
That's right. So I asked Velvet to price them out, and then also if she knew where we could get cabinets, and she said, yeah, that she'd asked Charlie and Richford and put me onto it, and
Thank you. Velvet.
They shared their secret source.
they did,
Great.
and
You go, Velvet.
You
There's-
just better
there-
leave some for me for the new town hall in Richford. That's all I got to say.
well, there's plenty over there still from the dean's office that we
I
raided.
told them to go and put our names on them so you wouldn't take them all, Mark.
Yeah, I have a standing order now, so. Great, and thank you, Velvet, yeah. So, so agenda items for the business meeting, April 19th. So we now do have the zoning laws in our lap. So, so yeah, I think, I've talked to a couple of you about it. I think, we should start creating notes vigorously, perhaps by email or whatever. And then, perhaps, at the April 19th meeting, we should have a discussion and see where we're at, and maybe talk about process one part of the process that I would like to have is when we're ready to be able to, we can always do that just by giving a phone call, but you know, if we have questions, we can consult with zoning commission members or Nan or whatever, or Guy. And so that's, so that, does that seem like a good step? I also think that we may want to start the seeker process, which just because it takes a while. And I think the first step in seeker is just to assign lead agency, which is just a simple resolution. And so I.
What's the secret process for this?
It's a state environmental review.
No, I know what it is, but this is not like an agency that the zoning draft needs to be run through like Agate Markets or something. You're saying seeker. Is seeker a process at this point in the process when we don't have a law?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we have to, I think we should talk with Nan and Guy and get advice on how to do that. I think we could assign lead agency, because that's just saying who's gonna take the lead, or if we have to have multiple agencies or whatever. So I think we should have some initial discussions so that we know if we should start, and if not, when. So that's what I think.
And Agate Markets, just for clarification, we are not required to run the zoning law through Agate Markets. That's by choice, which we've chosen to do, and we've already initiated that process.
Right. I mean, I'm asking, is that a similar situation with
No.
seeker?
So
No,
seeker is required by the state
for a law.
for a new zoning law.
For certain
For
laws,
certain
yeah.
laws, for certain
So,
laws.
right, for certain actions.
Okay.
Can I ask a point of order question? Will that draft that it was presented tonight go into the minutes that will be up for public viewing?
Yeah, it'll be on the website like tomorrow.
Thank
So,
you.
yep, it'll be, if you go to the zoning commission page, it'll be up, it'll, you know, it'll queue up to the top.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that I recommend that we do is, we've had the draft for the public hearing for quite some time, and I think we've all had a chance to work through it. One of the things that I've asked Nan to do, I just haven't been able to follow up, as she was preparing the final document, if she would track for us the changes that were made since that draft.
That would be good.
Since a lot of us has marked up that earlier draft, it just might give us some help. So I'm gonna ask her if she was able to do that.
The last changes.
Last
Since the
changes
public
since the
hearing.
public hearing, since the public hearing. There aren't a tremendous number, but there are some significant changes. So it'll just be easier, I think, if we have, and that way we can work with a clean document, but we'll know where to look. The other thing that I'm hoping that we can do is, to begin with, is perhaps, and I've mentioned this in the past, share amongst ourselves areas, let's say, of greatest concern. Assuming that we'll have some shared points of view about that based on public input and that sort of thing. If there are a couple of really big areas, my recommendation is that we tackle those initially, because it really can make a difference. You know, in terms of the other language throughout the law. The other thing that I'd recommend that we do, having participated in this process now for such a long time with the zoning commission, is I think we'll probably want to have a couple, 3 at least working sessions, maybe weekend meetings, early morning meetings when the whole board could be there. So that we could just do text work or discuss these particular issues. I mean, that would be my recommendation as a way to start. That'll also give us an idea, I think, of, you know, what lies ahead of us in terms of the kind of work that we anticipate doing. Because I'm sure once we get together and just start discussing the draft itself, things are going to come up.
Yeah.
Or what, a question I have is what would be our protocols if I see something and have a question, do I run it through Mark or Leanne or?
A question for who?
Well, that's what he's asking.
That's what,
Question.
yeah.
I probably, I mean. We can do it however you want, but
And what the zoning commission did is they actually worked, I hated it, but they worked off a Google Draft, a Google document. We might not want to do
Well,
that.
this is, I've asked for a searchable document.
Well, we have-
Probably 5 times.
We have a Word document, Catherine.
Yeah, but it's not this, if, when people edit, like, I think we need to have a working document the way, I agree with you, the way they had it.
okay.
Well, Dan can
Because-
help us with that, yeah,
Okay, well, I mean, to just,
sure.
yeah, I mean, that I'm requesting.
But, I mean, we just got blocked.
No, I
an
know.
hour ago.
Fine.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. We should.
Oh, sure, we want to do that, and we can decide, one of the things we'll have to decide in that regard is how we best want to work, whether, I mean, the zoning commission works both off of a Word document and a Google Doc.
Mhm,
Some people don't have easy access to Google,
mhm.
so we might not want to do that. Google's more shareable in terms of
Right.
you can share.
Is that's the one that captured their comments?
Yeah.
Right. so you can
That's what we
see.
want to do.
Right.
But I think what we should do, maybe the next meeting, it would be helpful if we could ask Nan to come to the next board meeting and just run through with us the most efficient ways to proceed in that regard.
In managing a Google document?
No, and just how we want to work through it. I'm just trying to think. of
Yeah, no,
most
I think
efficient thing.
I mean, what do I want
I
to
mean, I hear what you're trying to say.
I mean, I think there's process of like, what are we doing with the text and what's the process of dealing with
Right.
questions and like having a searchable document and tracking changes, like that's just, we're dealing with like a thing.
Right.
But I want to go on record as saying that I believe equally as important, probably more important, is like having actual engagement around purpose and purpose. I mean, like purpose,
Bigger
rationale.
questions or something,
What?
bigger questions. or-
Yeah, bigger
yeah.
bigger
But
questions and
Can
like,
those be by email, by shared email?
I guess I'm talking about engagement in such a way that I think one of the reasons I think it is fair to say that one of the reasons why there is concern in the community is that there is among a broad swath of people, honestly, regardless of like, it's not a pro or anti-zoning divide, but there's like a hunger, a legitimate hunger for understanding rationale and like, what is it that we are, what's our vision? Like, what's our mission? Like, what are we trying to retain? What are we trying to get rid of? What are we trying to protect against? Like, and I can see by the looks on faces already that it's like, I guess there's a belief that it's already in there because we have a purpose statement in the draft. And if that is how this board feels, then I respect that, but I guess I don't feel that we have had sufficient
What I hear,
engagement around like the yeah, go ahead. I don't know what to say. I like,
Well, then,
I'm
the
like, I don't know what to
word
say.
I hear you're searching for is clarity.
Well, but you're asking if we want to discuss the purposes,
Yeah,
so.
and if there's an appetite for that, and if there's not, then like, I guess that's its own thing, but I mean,
I think we should start a discussion and, you know,
The word I heard from the
hear what
commission was,
concerns or thoughts or suggestions
Yeah.
are.
you know, what's the legislative intent of this?
I mean, I think that's getting to, you know, if we just, and we like it, you know, we can start that discussion by email and then
Okay.
we can carry it into meetings as well.
right,
I do like,
But does some of that discussion need to be public and not?
Oh,
Yeah, we need, it's public.
the discussion doesn't need to be public.
if we get together.
We can discuss things by email.
Right.
Yes.
But I
Totally.
think, yeah, things that come out of email discussion, like I think then we would make a list of like, okay, at this next board meeting, we're talking about, you
Exactly.
know, this thing, that thing, and then do that, but
Precisely.
I don't personally want to get too caught up in a way in like the text, because that has been. I mean, I agree that there's been this like enormously iterative process around the document, like that's not really, for me, that is not in question. I think that there's been a little bit of like, we're getting like distracted by the primary concern, which is specific purpose.
That's what
Do
the
you-
task force was working on, right? I mean, the task force.
Task force was not,
Well, they. We're going back to why zoning, right? I mean, that's a lot of the questions we had tonight, that's, you know, well, why do we have to have zoning and. People not understanding. And that's what you're saying, why are we
no,
doing?
I'm not saying that, I
You're
say, I
not
think
saying
that people understand very well.
Mhm.
I think they understand very well. I am not questioning what people understand.
I just heard people say they didn't understand why we're doing zoning. I heard a couple of people say that, Catherine.
So anyway,
Okay,
so.
okay, this is like helpful for me. I mean, the way this conversation is helpful for me. I have information now that I didn't have at the beginning of the meeting, and that's all I need to know.
So can I just to clarify, Catherine? So you're not talking about the language. The purpose language in the recommended law.
Correct.
You want to have a
Oh.
more philosophical discussion, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I said this, I stated this with every time we've talked about the moratorium. I mean, I can state it again, but I feel like I'm kind of a broken record. Like we haven't, in my view, and I also realize that I'm one of 5, like I don't. This is representative government, like what I say doesn't matter, it's my view, but I want to speak my view, and it's just.
yeah, so that matters.
You know, I don't think that we have, if I even ask myself, like. What are we really trying to do with Route 79? You know, like, okay, well, like I agree that it's like a commercial corridor, so like. Then it's also prime farmland, like, are we trying to preserve that for prime farmland? I don't really think so, it doesn't really make any sense, I've been really involved in the ag, you know, we're not building farms on Route 79, so. I'm just saying, if I have as much confusion about it as I do, and I am being transparent that I have a lot of confusion, then
Then we should talk about
we
it.
should talk about it. I understand that other people should have probably more confusion, because like I've been studying the document
So wait,
from day one.
I just want to be, so we can get off, you know, so I thought that what you were recommending that we do. Is start as early as next meeting. Set aside an hour in the next meeting. And have a general purpose discussion.
Sure.
That seems to me to be different from. Deciding whether or not there should be a commercial zone in a particular place.
I
That
don't
seems
think
to be
it's different,
documented.
because I think that they're related, because the action should serve the vision.
Yeah, so I get
Okay, that's
that,
fine.
So yeah,
that's
All
fine.
right, so I think it would be a really good idea to start with that.
awesome, yeah.
We're gonna return to the, even as we get into the document, we're gonna return to some of the same questions.
Right.
But sure, why not? Why not? We'll just, can I recommend that? The next meeting, we set aside an hour. Do we have that time? We got to start making time for
I
this.
think we could.
To have a
that's fine.
general discussion amongst ourselves. Of what you're calling purpose.
Yeah.
And I would like to. I would recommend that we frame that discussion by leaning on the purpose statement
Mhm.
that the zoning commission has already articulated. As a guide.
I think it would be good to have a framework to work, to have a discussion fit in.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I'm like, it's also possible that there's not.
I mean,
it's
I
not-
think those kind of, I think.
Yeah.
You know. Asking detailed questions like that, you know, those are great, and we should do that, and.
And they can lead into a larger question.
Or you want to start with the larger questions,
Right.
and take the detailed questions.
But I'm just offering my own level of like curiosity and confusion, and it is totally fine to say like, I disagree, like, I think it's fine as it is, and then just say it now, so I don't, like, we don't need to like, not now, but like, we should have some clarity around, you and I talked about this today, I mean, it's like, we need to have some clarity around where we all are. Like, how far off are we?
You mean in
Right.
relationship to this document?
In relationship to the document, in relationship to the goals of the document, in relationship to like what we're doing with the document, right? Like whether or not it's being voted on now in 4 years, whether that's requested by petition or not, like to me, that is all like. It's not as important as like, what do the 5 of us right now, we are the people currently who are dealing with this thing. And I'm being honest, like, I don't know where we all are. I don't have a sense of that. And we don't have to talk about that now, you know, publicly, we could do that in email, but I'm just saying publicly that I want to do that in email because
Yeah.
without that, I'm not gonna talk about this, the text.
Well,
Like,
we have been, you know, we've been hands off up till now.
exactly, thank you. Like, that needs to be acknowledged, like, it is now our
I know,
turn.
I understand.
Like, and I'm
So,
going to
yeah.
take our turn.
No, I mean, I would be very happy to begin our discussions with my own general perceptions of this without just to have a general philosophical discussion at the beginning.
Okay.
That could be fruitful. That could be very, very fruitful.
Okay,
With, in hopes that in the meantime, we'll start really scouring this document. I mean, we're not gonna rush this thing through. It's not in our nature as a board. I don't think anybody wants to even imagine doing that.
Well,
I'm personally not ready to commit to some kind of a timeline, short or long. But I think the conversation, if I understand you properly, that I think we all would like to have is a general sharing of our own senses of our commitments, either philosophically or generally, towards the purposes of the zoning law. So I say, yes, let's do it.
yeah, great.
okay, so that's an agenda item for next meeting.
What's the possibility of starting a little earlier?
You want to start earlier?
Well, like among us on email. or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Yeah,
should like
yeah.
commence.
Yeah,
Let it begin.
yeah.
Not gonna talk to you till 2 weeks.
Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, are we still on committees?
No, we're done with committees. We're way past committees. We're almost ready to adjourn.
Well,
Yeah, we can go back to committees if you got.
Okay, you wanna talk?
this isn't really a committee item, but I don't know how else to put this other than, you know. I've actually made a request over and over as far back as a year ago. Sat here tonight and listened to everybody in the room talk about what is best for the town. And what's best for the town, what's best for the town, what's best for the town. Everybody up there, probably unwillingly, has stepped over the sidewalk in front of the town hall that has shy of a 3.5-inch lip. And I've asked over and over for that to be fixed. I've said something to code enforcement, I've said something to everybody. There's no paint on it, there's no markings on it. If we're gonna put some time into something, can we as soon as tomorrow?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mark, you walk over it every day. But there is a lip on the sidewalk that is 3.5 inches on one side.
So this is,
not the other.
you've never brought this up to me to do something about it. I mean,
So, I mentioned it.
Well, can I just recommend that we hear this and we will
We'll do something.
yeah.
do something, okay?
So are you talking about like the front porch?
Can we, do you have a can of neon spray paint? Can we just spray it tomorrow and then?
It should probably be painted in yellow.
I think that'd be
We
nice.
have a. Okay.
I don't care if it's bright pink, if it's gonna prevent someone from
Do
falling.
you have yellow paint? At the
I
high-
don't have yellow marking.
Could you get some?
We can get some, but we should probably look at fixing that sidewalk, whether it's hydraulically raised or repoured or whatever. We mentioned it as far back as when we replaced the sidewalk on the other side, because it was.
Okay,
It was
let's look at
big
it.
then, and it's a huge tripping hazard, I myself.
Okay.
Thank you, Barb.
I think it does have to be a certain color that wants to meet ocean standards.
I do have to say, this is the first time that I've heard about this, but we will work on it for sure. So do we have other agenda items?
Yeah, I discussed it, I mentioned it before, and I would like to just offer a resolution to terminate our COVID policy as of May 11th. Makes sense. So,
On for next week.
so I'll just do that. That'll be,
Can we just do that now? I mean, do we have to like?
we could, if you want to.
Might as well.
Okay.
People-
pretty busy next week.
Yeah.
It'll be a big week next week. Let's
Okay.
It's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Are you listening, Velvet? So I'll offer a resolution to terminate the town's COVID-19 policy as of May 11th, at the consistent with the termination of the COVID emergency.
I'll second that.
Second by Kate. And any further discussion? No, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
What does that mean, Mark? I mean, everybody has to attend live or?
No, we have a COVID policy.
Employees.
It's
Personnel.
yeah, it's a personnel.
No,
thing.
Oh, we were gonna look into the recording, the question of recording, we were just gonna do that, doesn't have to be an agenda item, but just. Of whether we still need to have recording.
Oh, that we were
Yeah.
discussing, yeah,
I missed that. Was that, so what is that?
I'm just curious, we were curious if record like minutes, because we used to record, but not post recording, right? We always had the little R2D2 thing, right?
right, there was a voice recording.
And so that was helpful for the clerk for
Yes.
minutes, so obviously I think we still need to do that.
Yeah,
And we need people to like attend, you know, we want people to like attend in all ways possible for access.
right.
But I mean, I'm okay saying that I personally have questioned whether having recorded meetings is a help or a barrier to open discussion. So I don't know, we could talk about that, but I don't know if it's required by open meeting law, and so.
Yeah,
you know,
I'll have to figure it out. I'll
like, well, we would still have minutes and we'd still have Zoom, everything would be the same, but it's like, for anyone who deals with Zoom in their work lives, probably familiar with like, certain things are recorded, certain things aren't recorded. There are reasons why people feel free or not free to speak when they're being recorded, and I just want.
So do you want this on the agenda then for? is it-
Well,
is it
well,
agenda
Mark was
item?
gonna get an answer, I guess,
I was gonna
whether it's
ask
legally
Lori.
required.
But if it weren't legally required, I would like to have this discussion because I actually think it's one of the most positive things that's happened.
Okay,
Yeah. And
Coming
I'm
out of
thinking
COVID
about,
is that all of the meetings that we've had
yeah,
for the past 2-3 years are now completely available to the public.
right, yeah, it's a
I
picture.
think it's been
and
fantastic.
it's really helpful to the
Okay.
clerk, to Jesse and Velvet, so.
Well, they would have it anyway, though. I guess what I'm proposing is the clerk's reading of the meetings wouldn't be altered.
The clerk would keep a private recording?
Well, didn't we always have a recording?
You mean like a sound recording,
Yeah.
not a video recording?
Yeah.
Did we not? I thought we did, but maybe we didn't. We had a
We did, we did, but it would just, it would be a hassle if we had to do that in addition to the
Right.
Zoom meeting,
Okay.
so.
Okay, it was just my question. It was just a question, because
I mean, the clerk used those previous, that satellite thing. The clerk relied on that simply for memory purposes,
right.
but still summarized the meetings in the minutes. They weren't verbatim.
Right. Okay.
So.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if Jesse and Velvet say, I don't, that's a terrible idea, we want to keep them, I like, it's over, done with
Right.
discussion, but I just want to like, you know, that we have dealt with situations where there is now footage of all of us, like me, like eating my dinner. And I, you know, it goes, God knows where, and I mean, I think that that's something that's part of our contemporary culture that I think should be addressed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know it's 9 o'clock, let's go home, but I mean,
Here,
this is.
Sounds like it's an agenda item.
Maybe it's just, I don't know, there are benefits, I'm not saying there aren't benefits, but given some of the situations we've run into, I mean, I want people to feel safe. You all as well as us all, this is not like an unburdened.
I won't be here next week, but for me, it's helpful for me,
Okay,
especially the days that I can't
Yeah.
You know, I can't make it or stuff, phone or stuff, doing something. So,
We can look at it, yeah.
I can go in the morning, like 3 o'clock, and
That's
I
it.
try not to do this at all, but at 3 o'clock, I can click on board meeting and catch up.
Okay. You just don't do it in your evening, your spare time and
I do not.
enjoy the board meetings.
Well, consider this the
Watch
discussion.
hours.
It's fine. This doesn't need to happen. Thank you, Tim, for your feedback. Thank you, Bobby, for your feedback. Thank you, Mark, for entertaining this.
I mean, it's an interesting question that. The official record of the town are the minutes. That's what the official, because the recording expired
Right.
for like 7 years, so. As far as retention. Okay, anything else for next week? I think that's it. I'll offer a motion to. Adjourn?
Sure.
Second.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give it to Catherine one bit, so,
No, you can.
all in favor? Aye. We adjourned, Velvet.
What's my work here, how tomorrow?
Yeah, it's Carolyn Center.
Oh, got it.
All right, I'll see you in the morning.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.